Hello there everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for joining me today. Now today's video on Dissidia is actually going to be the first video and hopefully a weekly series of Chaos Roundups. So you guys have seen obviously a lot of content creators for Dissidia will upload their clears for various Chaos or the hardest difficulty events that are going on at the moment. But instead of me doing them individually, I wanted to do like a roundup at the end of each week while all of the events are still live so that you can kind of find them all in one place. I can take you through basically sort of the team that I took through and why I took it, and then some alternatives in case you don't have necessarily the same characters that I do. So if you're interested in seeing, for this week at the very least, Gao's event, DE7, and the new event featuring Yuri and Onion Knight, which is the Crystal Turtles and the the Heretic quests, then hopefully I can take you through some of that stuff and you can clear the stuff yourself and get all of the resources, the nuggets and gems and tickets and all that good stuff for yourselves. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to keep on watching. Of course, don't forget to come and find me on social media, so I leave my Twitter, my Twitch, my Facebook, all that good stuff in the description box below, as well as my Discord, which I'm getting there with it, we're reformulating things and it's starting to become a little bit more active again, which is lovely now that you guys realise that I'm actually around again. And my Patreon, I've actually got some really cool ideas that I'm coming up with and I'm in the process of carrying out, so you've got that to look forward to as well. And of course, the community wouldn't be what it is without all of the other Dissidia content creators, so be sure to check those out, and I'll leave names as you can see scrolling just now, and I'll be sure to check all of those out and go to those guys as well in case you want clears that are different from mine. So as you can see on the left hand side here, we have Gao's event here. This is the Chaos version. So the team that I decided to bring, I actually was inspired to bring by another content creator, which is Firezz, and this is going to be Rem, Ultimecia, and Aranea. Now, one thing I do want to quickly touch on here, and I've heard this from watching a couple of other people's videos and stuff, is that there's a lot of comments and stuff from people going, oh, no, you can't use this as a qualified thing because you're using Aranea and she's busted. I'm like, yeah. Why would I shoot myself in the foot if I have Aranea to just not use her? If you can't get her, then fair enough. Though her banner is still live for the next few days, so if you haven't got her already, I would suggest you drop everything and pull for her, because she's just that damn good. And I do use her for both this event and the DE7 as well, and I will explain why as I get to that. But the idea with this particular team composition is that Rem is there to try to give Ultimecia as many turns as she can, because Ultimecia's ability to just rinse through or enemy parties by using Apocalypse and Hell's Judgment and just the massive amounts of 100% AoE damage will do absolute wonders for you. And then Aranea just is Aranea and she does her thing. She, I take another Aranea friend. Thank you very much, Peacecraft, for your Aranea. I want to make sure that I'm dealing as much damage in as short a space of time as possible. Now, a lot of people have said that this event was really easy as well, and sure, it's not the most difficult Chaos, but I say that, but I died on this event probably more times than I care to mention, as opposed to the other two that I show today, and I think that's because you just got to be careful when it comes to turn manipulation when there starts to become more than one of these sort of raptors. I couldn't tell you the name of them off the top of my head. But once you've got more than one of them, you end up having to make sure that they don't have their turns too close together. There were so many times where I would break them in the wrong order, and then they'd end up where the turn order would go like my character, then A, then B, then A, then B again, and then my characters will be dead. So that's not how one wants to do it. I think that using Ultimecia has been really, really valuable to me, but there are plenty of other characters that work really well for this. Honestly, if you wanted to play it safe, and I'm going for as high a score as possible because I just wanted to clear it quickly, and that's why I took inspiration from somebody else. Warrior of Light will do absolute wonders for you in this event. He just basically makes it so that all of their brave attacks, all the breath attacks that they keep going over and over and over again, they don't do nearly as much damage because they're not doing any bravery damage to you, and you also don't have to worry about getting broken. So in this particular situation, Warrior of Light's actually much better than Zack. But Zack is still pretty good. He still has the, if he's kind of warding all of the non-breath attacks toward himself, then it means that you've got the ability to kind of work around the breath attacks, because Zack can heal himself. And I would suggest, however, having another healer in your party. I have Rem here, and she does really well for it. But Y'shtola is also a really good shout for this particular event, because you get the turn manipulation from Stone, you get the healing, you get the ability to not have to do an HP attack by using Medica. You've got a lot of really good options there. Golbez is another option that you could use as well, just because he's got massive amounts of AoE damage, similar to what Ultimecia does. Emperor is another one that I think would be really good, because you get the defense drops from his traps, and then obviously, because there's 2 to 3 enemies, this is where Emperor shines, and he does really, really well. So basically what you want to have is a tank, preferably Warrior of Light if you want to play it safe. I've not made one here, but that's because I've just gone for raw damage. Some sort of AoE damage, whether that be Aranea or Ultimecia or Emperor or Golbez. There's loads of options you can have for that. And then somebody with healing capabilities. Rosa is another good option. There's lots of really good options here. You've got Rem, Y'shtola, you've got, as I say, you've got Rosa. There's plenty of options there for you. Just be careful when it comes to this particular event that they don't break you too frequently, if at all, because if you're taking Warrior of Light with you, they shouldn't really be breaking you at all. And you've got the ability to heal up from the breath attacks, because they're going to deal some HP damage whether we like it or not. So just bear that in mind, and then this event should be a cinch for you. Next up we have Dimensions End Entropy 7. Now, the team that I take in for this is Aranea, Zack and Ignis. Now, in all honesty, this event kinda hinges on Zack like quite heavily. So if you have Zack, then this is going to be a much easier time for you than if you don't. Now, again, I am using Aranea in this particular event, but again, if people want to be upset about the fact that I'm using Aranea in my clear, well, at least it's Dimensions End and you won't have to worry about me using her again, because if I use her in this, then I can't use her in anything else. I do think that one of the primary things you will need to have in a team when it comes to this particular event is some sort of debuff evasion, whether that be Ignis or Lena or an alternative that way. Having debuff evasion will really help you in this particular mission, because debuffs tend to be very heavy, and there's one particular debuff you definitely don't want hitting you when it comes to the third wave of this event, and that's Fog. Fog makes it so that you can't use any of your skills. That's very bad. I mean, with this particular clear as well, you will have to forgive me, because this particular run is very messy. I get things wrong very frequently in this run. So I summon in the wrong place. I let Ignis's buffs run out at one point, and I have to use them during the summon. It's really ugly. However, if anything, then you can use this run to take the fact that, despite the fact that I made many mistakes, it's still very clearable, and Aranea puts in an absolute megaton of work. I cannot stress enough how great she is for this point in time in the game. And honestly, I used her here. This is actually the second clear I had for it. I had to unperfect it because I forgot to press the record button the first time I did it. So we'll just have to gloss over that. But there's loads of characters that you can use for this, although you're not going to find it as easy as if you used Aranea, being honest. Or Zack. Zack is a massive part of this particular mission, because you need them to, you know, if the second wave breaks one of your characters, that character is probably dead, if it's not Zack, or somebody that can like stay alive at 1 HP and then recover his health back again. Ignis also heals amazingly, so this is why I built the team that I did. I think it's probably the most common team to use for this particular mission, but there's a reason for that. It works extremely well. Looking at some of the other characters that other people have used, Sephiroth isn't too bad for this, because Black Materia can make sure that their bravery is set to 0 and allows you to be able to do a large amount of damage, and the speed down debuff from him is really nice. Rosa can work really well for this because she's got the healing, she's got the batteries, she's got the longevity, she works really nicely. Some people have used Rinoa for this particular one. Again, AoE damage. I actually tried to use Golbez multiple times, and I know a lot of people have used Golbez as their damage dealer for this particular mission, but for some reason when I tried to do it, and honestly, there was a point where I was sitting there watching someone else's video and doing it word for word, I swear to God, my artifacts must just be bad on my Golbez, because it just wasn't working. Yuri you could actually use for this, or if you have Yuri now, because he does a large amount of AoE damage, 100% on the second wave, and yeah, he can do really good concentrated damage on the third wave by using Rella Crystal. He's just very strong as well. Tifa I've seen used quite a lot for this particular mission, because the delay is really handy. You've got basically turn manipulation is always going to be a factor. I've used Aranea in this particular case, but Tifa would also work very well. In terms of the summons, I used Shiva, sorry, because I wanted the speed up and the attack up, whereas with Brothers, you don't get any attack boost. And once they start getting their defenses up, I want Zack to be able to deal as much damage as possible, because a lot of the damage is actually going to be coming from him. But there's a lot of other characters that you could use, but honestly, I think that this team is kind of set in stone for this one, which is why I pulled for the characters that I did. If I didn't have Ignis, I probably would have used Lena, because Ignis's damage isn't really what he's there for. He's there for the debuff evasion. So if you have Lena and you don't have Ignis, then that could be an alternative as well. But when it comes to the actual mission itself, you kind of want to keep I kept as many of my skills back as I could for the third wave, because like midway through the fight, he recovers all of his health, stands up, and gets a lot stronger. But the second wave can be really difficult, and you know, I tend to be somebody that if the second wave's not going very well, I'll just quit and then start again, and then I'll try again. And I want to get that second wave to be as good as possible before moving on to the third. Now, as you can see in this particular run, that didn't really matter, because in the third wave I really mess up quite frequently. In fact, in the second wave I let Zack take a very large chunk of damage, but because he's Zack, it was okay. The only other two characters I will mention for this particular event are 8 and Aiko. Now, a lot of people have been using 8 and Aiko as a duo to go through a lot of the entropy stages, but if I wouldn't take them as a duo, personally. I think, again, as much as it's nice to free up a character for other stages, if you have to do that, then great, and you happen to have these two, then you can try it. But there's a lot of luck involved if you try and do that, because all of the enemies have to be hitting 8 at all times and not Aiko. The idea being that 8 has his evasion buff up, Aiko can extend his buff, so by the time that his buffs run out, he can then recharge it with his EX, and it does work. It's just very luck heavy, because if they're always targeting Aiko and not 8, you're in trouble, and it can be a bit iffy. So having a secondary support, somebody like Rosa or Vanille or something like that to back them up, might be quite helpful. But equally, if you've got 3 characters in your party and not 2, that's even less chance of them targeting 8, which is why I'm not a big fan of that composition personally, because I think it will take me a lot of tries to get the luck correct, but a lot of people have tried it and it does work. And then lastly, we have the Crystal Encrusted Chelonian Chaos. It was the name I was trying to remember when I first started the video. But this is the Heretic event that features Yuri and Onion Knight. Now, as you can see here, I do happen to have Yuri, although, my god, did he took me some effort, I'll tell you. And I will actually show you a little kind of snippet of the kind of luck I've had recently at the end of the video. But I also think that there's a lot of characters that you can use for this event. This one I actually didn't find too difficult. As long as you're using magic AoE damage and you balance out the damage that you're dealing, certainly in the second wave, because you do not want to kill one of the Iguions and then the other one just get loads of health and stats. It adds loads of turns to your turn count. You want to kill them at the same time. It just makes a big difference. So I actually really enjoyed doing this chaos as well because it gave me a fantastic reason to use Emperor again, and we all know how much I love the Emperor. I didn't get Onion Knight, but he would work equally well. In fact, he probably works just as well, if not better, than half the characters out there, purely because of the enchant Imperil that he has. He can do his enchant across the party, as opposed to Yuri, who just does it for himself. Yuri does, however, have healing and batterying and auras and all sorts of things. I absolutely love Yuri, and that's why I was happy to put in a fair amount of resources to get him. Y'shtola, I absolutely adore in this particular mission because of the turn manipulation that she has, the auras that the various different bravery batteries that she has. Stone just works brilliantly. Her HP works brilliantly. And then Emperor, I really heavily value his defense debuffs as well as the traps themselves. And I also brought a friend Emperor with me because honestly, 2 Emperors during a summon will deal just a ridiculous amount of damage. And during the third wave, that's exactly what I do. Set up a Drury Cell, and then just go to town with the traps over and over and over again. I actually replaced Y'shtola for Emperor in this particular case, which is quite strange. For this kind of party composition, you don't normally take out the support for more damage, but I thought that Yuri was doing enough damage by himself that, honestly, the 2 Emperors were self-sufficient. But there's loads of characters that you can use for this, even if you don't have Yuri or Onion Knight or any of the featured characters. So I've seen a lot of Ultimecia being used again. I could have quite happily used Ultimecia instead of Emperor. Sarah is a character I've seen used quite frequently in this event. She's done really well because obviously the debuffs and buffs and things like the batteries, they all work really well. I've seen Rem used a lot again. Rem's actually been really quite heavily featured in various events recently, and I think that she's a very underrated character, and I'm really pleased that I managed to grab her when I did. So she's a character that I've seen used quite a lot. Basically just magic AoE. Golbez again, and if you've got Imperil and Enchant, things like that, then you'll do really well. Aiko is a character I've seen used in this particular event quite a lot. You've actually got quite a lot of options. This particular event, as I said, I actually didn't find all that difficult. I thought it was good fun. I really enjoyed this event, and I think that you guys will too. You just have to experiment with some of these characters. In terms of support, Y'shtola is amazing, as I've said, but you could equally use, somebody like Lilith. You could easily use somebody like Rosa. They'd all work really well. Like Lilith's actually not very commonly used, but I have seen a run using her, and it worked really well because instead of Sarah, because you get the debuffs and everything, as well as the Brave Batteries and the overflow limit raise as well from her EX is really nice. There's lots of options. You've got Zack and Warrior of Light still work in this event. Zack in particular, because he's a tank, but he just does a crazy amount of damage as well. Anyone who fulfills more than one role will do really well. And the reason that I used Emperor here as well is because his debuffs, because he sets up 3 frames debuffs, so you always have to be careful when it comes to Emperor not to overload debuffs. But luckily this particular party composition actually complements each other really well, because Stone does a debuff, Yuri has his Holy Resist down, and then Emperor has his debuffs, and it just makes their defenses much lower, and it's a really valuable thing to have. So that's all of the Chaos events for this week. So next week, hopefully we should have Pandemonium, Lulu, and Dimensions End 8. So we should have some nice little bits to come next week as well, and hopefully I'll have a bit more luck when it comes to characters, because I'm just leaving you with an example of how my luck has been this month. I have not had a single free EX from any of the 10 free pulls that we got, and the number of off banners I've had have been painful, to say the least. And Yuri was worth it. I absolutely adore playing as him. He's a really fun character to use, and you can see from the run that I just had how effective he is as well. So glad that the run I had for his event was that much tidier than DE7, because that was messy. Don't use that as an example. So anyways, thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you very much for watching the videos. I hope that what I've said here will help you, and that the clears will give you an example of how these things work. If you want to stay tuned for more Dissidia content, then stay subscribed to the channel, of course, and leave a like on the video, all sorts of things, and share it to any of your friends that happen to play Dissidia. And then obviously we've also got lots more content coming up very soon as well, so stay tuned for that as well. So that's going to be it from me. Thanks guys, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!